Hello and welcome to Starting at Zero, Reimagining Education in America. We are thrilled to have you here at the live event or watching the recording. I am Amy O'Leary, the Executive Director at Strategies for Children. And over the past 22 years, Strategies for Children has worked to ensure that Massachusetts invests the resources needed for all children from birth through age 5 to access high-quality early education programs. In doing so, we have created opportunities to connect decision makers with thousands of early education stakeholders working together to develop policies that support children and families, especially over the past 2 years. The momentum is growing, and now we are positioned to reimagine and build a better early education and care system across the Commonwealth. Starting at Zero, Reimagining Education in America explores the power of investing in high-quality early education so that all children and families have the opportunity to attain the American dream. The film brings together the voices of early education and care stakeholders across the country and examines the latest developmental brain science to demonstrate how essential the earliest years of learning are to maximize human potential. The full film is available online. Today, we will watch curated content together as the film delves into the evolution of Alabama's #1 nationally ranked state pre-K program and outlines key features of high-quality early childhood learning environments and experiences. We know the context in every state is so important and different, and there are lessons that we can take from Alabama's pre-K model in designing a comprehensive system in Massachusetts, but we know not everything will be a good fit. So join us in reimagining what early education can look like in the Commonwealth. Today, the film will be followed by the premiere of a Massachusetts companion video featuring stakeholders across our state, and then a panel discussion with leaders from Lawrence, Somerville, and Northampton on how they are building comprehensive early childhood systems and community partnerships at the local level. We hope that you leave the event today empowered to do this work in your local community, no matter what stage, and we will provide resources to support you. As we get started, I must thank my colleague, Marissa Fear, who has made today come true. Thank you, Marissa, for all you have done for this event. It has been incredible to see how everything has come together, and I am personally grateful for your leadership. Now I'm going to turn it over to our partners for today's events for some brief remarks before we dive into the film. I must say that working on this collaboration has been so meaningful, and I know we will continue to work together in the future. So Noni, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Amy. Welcome to so many from across Massachusetts and across the nation who share our commitment to the well-being of children, families, and early educators. As Amy said, I'm Noni Lasso, co-director of the Saul Zaentz Early Education Initiative at Harvard University and chair of the board of Early Education and Care in Massachusetts. I too, like Amy, want to thank our partners and collaborators in this initiative, but also so many other initiatives as well. Strategies for Children, the Saul Zaentz Charitable Foundation, and Firestarter Interactive. Big picture, I can't think of a more important moment than this one for all of us to be in dialogue and to be taking many strategies and approaches to progress. Like so many states across the country at this very moment in time, rebuilding and even reimagining early education and care is no longer simply a societal priority or even a value, but an economic strategy. Stabilizing, rebuilding, reimagining childcare is going to be the way out of the pandemic, but it's also an overdue opportunity to surface its role each and every day as a public good, both here in Massachusetts and across the nation. So short term, we're focused on stabilization and growth and some reimagining. Longer term, fueled by more energy and momentum than ever, we are thinking about systems building in early education and care, not simply because it is a service and a sector in government or in community, but instead because it is a cornerstone, a human capital enterprise that relies on and is powered by an outstanding and resilient workforce that drives directly into societal and economic progress. So thank you all of you today, to everyone for joining us.
Great, and now I'll turn things over to Elliot.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Elliot Steinberg, and I'm the president and chairman of the Saul Zaentz Charitable Foundation. I'm delighted to be with you, but I apologize in advance that I'm at an airport between flights, so I hope you can hear me clearly. I thought it might be worthwhile, since I've been involved with this project from the beginning, to sort of take a look back and sort of give you the backstory of how this film was created and how we all got together. Some years ago, we had created a program at the Harvard Graduate School of Education under the leadership of Professor Noni Lasso and Professor Stephanie Jones, called the Zaentz Initiative. And it has just thrived. I encourage you to go online and take a look at it and see what the programming is. It's very interesting work, very progressive, and really at the cutting edge of early childhood education in America. In the meantime, speaking of the Harvard Graduate School of Education, I was giving a lecture there a few years ago. And when I finished, a woman came up to me and she introduced herself as Gina Ross. And she said she was the director of the Department of Early Childhood Education in Alabama. The Department of Early Childhood Education. Alabama also has a separate Department of Education. And she invited me to come to the governor's forum on education. The only thing I, at the time, knew about Alabama was about the University of Alabama football team. I didn't know anything about its educational programs. So I told her that I would look at my calendar and get back to her. So I looked up the state of Alabama education programs, early childhood education. I was stunned to find out that the university, that the state of Alabama has the #1 ranked high quality early childhood program in America. So I immediately called Gina Ross back and I said, yes, I really want to come, but I'd like to see some of your schools and I'd like to meet your staff and I'd like to meet some teachers. She said, no problem. So I went there for 4 days and I was completely blown away. The program, the teachers I met, the schools I visited, the executives that I talked to, and the extent of the program, as you'll see on this film, is extraordinary. So I said to her, Gina, I don't know how we're going to tell this story. The only thing I can think of doing, which was my background, is that let's make a documentary. Let's have a party. Let's make a documentary. So I immediately went back to Boston, to Cambridge, and I talked to Professor Lasso and Professor Jones, and I proposed that we make this documentary about early childhood education in Alabama, which they agreed to doing. In the meantime, we had worked previously with a young filmmaker who had done some work for us for the Zaentz Initiative by the name of Willa Kammerer. And I liked her work and I liked who she was. I liked her personality. I thought she was a very good up and coming filmmaker. So we asked her to be the director of our film. Thus began a 3-year odyssey, a saga, in which we went all over the South, studied what was going on, because it was really the Southern states who've really made such a huge difference in early education. I know that Massachusetts has done extraordinary things, but so have a group of Southern states. So we made the film you're about to see, and I really hope you enjoy it. What we tried to do was to tell the story of what early childhood education should look like. That if you were building a program from scratch, what should that program look like? What it should look like is what they have in Alabama. And I know that the people from Alabama would be delighted to come and speak and advise you on what you're doing. In fact, we've now retained Gina Ross, retired, and she is now our director of early childhood education outreach to states, governors, and communities to talk about how to build early childhood education programs in America. So I hope you love the film, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you everyone for being here. And Elliot gave such a great background on what you're about to see. My name is Willa Kammerer. I run a production company called Firestarter Interactive based in Providence. We're committed to improving the well-being of people and planet through storytelling. And this film, Starting at Zero, fits squarely into that mission. So I won't give you too much more. Elliot really primed, the story you're about to see, which really our goal was to share the nuts and bolts of how Alabama built this high quality program, both from down to how they built their classrooms, but also how they accomplished it on a community and a policy perspective. So we hope that it can bring context and inspiration to Massachusetts, and that you enjoy this film as well as the Massachusetts companion film that we have really enjoyed interviewing leaders across the state. So thank you for this opportunity, and we hope you enjoy it.
Alabama is one of the shining stars, not only in the Southeast, but in the entire country.
Alabama has met all 10 of the critical elements of the NEAR report, one of a few states that have actually met all 10 of those program requirements to be considered high-quality pre-K.
Our children are our future. And what we do as a state today will determine who we are as a state tomorrow.
At the Department of Commerce here in Alabama, the challenge for us is a developing workforce shortage as we move through time. Children who have the benefit of quality pre-K education are better prepared for future education.
Alabama's first-class pre-K program, under the capable leadership of Secretary Gina Ross, is constantly and consistently ranked as the highest quality pre-K program in the nation.
The growth of this pre-K program has just been amazing. Because this program is so well run, we keep adding programs and it just keeps getting better and better.
Alabama has a full-day program. It's at a decent cost per student. What Alabama has been able to create absolutely should be duplicated and replicated by other states in the country.
Our goal was to be the best from the beginning.
We looked at other states' work. We looked at Georgia, North Carolina. Both were leaders in early childhood education and had strong pre-K programs. They had good foundational principles in place and methods that we were able to take and weave them into a unique program for Alabama.
We did not want to risk trying to develop something from scratch and it not working. We learned from the experience of other states. We started with what we knew worked based on the research.
The structures of the program are very important. Within the framework, we have the essential elements, the essential components of a good program to make sure that the quality standard is there, but that the children also are successful and we have the outcomes that we expect.
High quality doesn't happen overnight. High quality is a process, and it has to be something that you're willing to work at.
And that's just one thing we have chosen not to sacrifice. We're going to maintain the highest quality standards and really help this multifaceted delivery system grow.
Doing it incrementally has also let us collect the data to look at the student performance.
I think Alabama has done a really wonderful job in establishing a system, a statewide system that goes to every level of early learning, from the governor's office to the secretary's office down to the classroom.
Through collaboration from grade to grade, we will ensure that a child's learning builds upon the foundation that's been laid in pre-K, then into kindergarten, and then beyond. By creating collaboration between grades, we will meet students where they are in the progression of learning.
They've developed a continuum of services prenatally to when their children reach 3rd grade, and within that they have focus on ensuring that these services are of the utmost quality.
We were excited to receive the highest ranking in the nation for our pre-K program, and we've tried really hard to maintain that ranking, to maintain that quality, and we want to be number 1.
Everything that we've done is available and open. We feel very strongly that as we work together, not only with the people within our state, other states, that we can all have good input into how a child can best be given the experiences and the necessary skills to be ready for kindergarten and success through school and life.
The prettiest classrooms are not necessarily the best classrooms. It's really not the pan, it's the chef that makes things happen. That's why I keep going back to having excellent teachers in every classroom.
I think it's very important for the teacher to feel valued as a professional. Those high-quality teachers are very important to what we expect out of the classroom, the quality of the classroom. Having that responsive and sensitive teacher is key to the success of the program.
To have an excellent teacher in every classroom, you need to provide them with the support, the leadership who understands them and can lead them, as well as the coaches and the mentors who can help them hone their skills and really engage in the craft that they were prepared for.
Our role as a department and an agency has really been and will continue to be to support the teachers, the coaches, and all the adults involved in the education of these young children.
We have requirements for credentialing in our programs. Every teacher must have a bachelor's degree in early childhood education or child development or early education in special ed. To understand the development of a child is key.
The department's been very instrumental in getting the college and universities to change their teacher education curriculum for it to be best for early learning. And that took a lot of leadership for this department to step up, for post-secondary to step up and say, it's a give and take. We're going to have to make changes to have a qualified teacher workforce to meet the demand of high-quality pre-K teachers.
One of the very big things that we did to make pre-K important is that we provided pay parity for those pre-K teachers. So pre-K teacher makes exactly what a teacher in K-12 makes. In providing that salary, that teacher is a professional. She wants to stay in that classroom, and it's really increased our quality.
It's very motivating as a professional because I know that I have Secretary Ross's support and everyone in our office. When we see a problem, we see an issue, we attack it. We can diffuse it as quickly as possible because we have that flexibility to do that and then move on.
We've got the state set up in 8 different regions. There's a staff of 8 regional directors across the state. Each regional director is responsible for hiring and supervising all of the coaches and monitors in their area across the state.
One of the things that I think is special about Alabama is their coaches.
The professional development that our program offers is probably the key factors to success for our state.
We have the role of coaches who go in and work directly with the teachers on self-reflection, support them through improvement goals that they would like to see. And then we have the monitors across the state that work more with the pre-K directors in each program, working with the budgets, working on compliance with the program guidelines and things like that. It really builds the relationship to have the coach as a separate job.
This is my first year teaching ever, so I'm a brand new teacher. I have an auxiliary teacher, so we have 2 teachers in each classroom, and so we kind of work fluidly together to teach and plan our daily lessons. And then we also have our coaches and our monitors. They've just been so supportive ever since the beginning. That's one thing that I've loved so much being a new teacher. I always had so many questions, and so they were always so quick to respond and so eager to help.
It's hard when you are outnumbered by 18 4-year-olds in a classroom. So we need to make sure they have everything that could possibly help them.
But if a teacher doesn't have that support system, sometimes it can be very lonely, it can be very isolating. And a lot of times it just means that a teacher can't reach their potential because they don't have time to sit back and think and to reflect on what it is they do. And I think when that happens, we miss a lot of the potential of teachers.
I'm not sure of any other state that has the mentorship that they have in Alabama to go in the classroom and to model and to give suggestions and help teachers be the best that they can be.
We have a huge conference every year, and it's a time when teachers can get away, spend the night in a hotel, visit with their colleagues from across the state, spend time together and feel valued.
It's 3 days full of information and overload. You come back so excited. It's a great new way to start the year, but it is also a great way for these teachers to meet each other, to exchange ideas, and to learn from some of the very best.
It's almost like a revival to inspire them and re-energize them to go back and do some of these things with the children and remind them this is what we need to be doing.
This conference is a great experience, and I couldn't have asked for anything more from this program.
It's just a wonderful thing where we can come together to learn more and just spread the gospel to teach our children a better way. And when we take it back to our classroom, that's when the fun starts with me, because what I've learned here, I can see it on my children's face.
I think the most important thing about this program is that it's all child-based interest, because when they're interested in their learning, they're more motivated to work harder, they're more excited to work harder. You can see the love of learning develop through their interests.
We really get to focus on like the social emotional aspect of it, so that when they do get to kindergarten, then they're ready social emotionally, so then they can be ready academically.
Alabama has been really one of the only states that said statewide we want to make a commitment. Their coaches all got training on social and emotional development, and then the leadership for the coaches got that support.
Diverse delivery is a unique feature of the Alabama First Class Pre-K program. It enables us to serve children in multiple settings.
Once someone takes funding from the Department of Early Childhood Education, they are agreeing to the first class model that we have put together. And this model is outlined in the program guidelines, the classroom guidelines.
We allow grants to be written by public school systems, private child cares, faith-based programs, military-based, home-based programs.
You find the best way to deliver your model, and it's not all one size fits all. That's the beauty of this system, is that they're all unique.
We just believe that this approach enables us to reach children wherever they are.
Our classrooms just have everything that you can imagine in it. We work very closely with each area of the classroom to make sure that everything that they need is in there.
Oh, this classroom is amazing. It has all the learning environments that a child could ever dream of. It has small group areas, it has a dramatic play area, block area, manipulative area, art, science, reading, listening. They're all right here.
Usually around $18,000 to $20,000 can fully furnish a classroom. We have some different companies that have put together classroom packages for us, and so it's almost like a one-stop shop. You can purchase a package and it is everything from the ground up as far as what goes into a classroom.
The paper, the pencil, the rugs, the glue, crayons. We don't want the parents to have to bring any kind of supplies, so all the supplies that the children need are included in that package.
We don't necessarily put kids in chairs and tables. We have a lot of parents that come into our classrooms and they don't understand. They think the kids are just playing. But what we try to teach that parent is play is the work of children. When you play, you learn.
We're looking at the whole child here, and we know that not only does the child need a beautiful learning laboratory, outside play, and everything in between, children also need nutrition that is top rated. Without that piece, of course, the brain cannot develop nor the body.
So we have nutrition requirements for the program. They are expected to provide at least one nutritious meal per day.
Each one of our classes have a health screening. So they come in and have a physical screening, they do an eye check, a dental check, and from that a referral could be made to ensure their child would get glasses or a child would get dental care.
Having a community support base and a child ready to learn, whether they have been immunized or they are socially, emotionally ready or they're educationally ready, it does take the entire community and all people working together. The health community, the business community, education, and parents.
We try to encourage a healthy child from the top to the bottom, from the inside to the outside.
When we think about the whole child or the whole brain child, we're thinking about holistic health. And we can't think about that without thinking about what is their home life like. Not only what their home life is like, the holistic well-being of the parent.
Understanding that parents play a huge role. There's a tremendous amount of emphasis placed on parental involvement.
The parents are part of the system. They're connected through our home visiting programs as well that we try to connect through our pre-K program.
Each child comes from a different background, socially, economically, racially, everyone's different, and my job as the lead teacher is to stay in touch with the parent, where they come from, and what their desires, what their goals are for their children, and continue to keep in contact with those parents when they reach those goals.
Hi, my name is Iria White, and this is Cash. Me staying at home was not an option. So, it was going to have to be either pay this or be able to be accepted into one of the pre-K programs.
Hi, my name is Delia Hasbury, and my son is in a first-class pre-K classroom here in Montgomery, Alabama at the Bell Road YMCA. It's a great experience. They have great teachers, monitors. It's a great system. I came from a family. I was the first one to graduate and go to college. I was so proud to do that. I knew that I wanted that for my children. I encourage, in your education, go on to college. It gives you better opportunities out there. Go and get in this work field, whether you're in Alabama or wherever. Just learn as much as you can here.
What I've come to see with the program, the maturity, the independence, just a lot of growth. I've seen a big difference from when he's attended other programs in other schools. Just the willingness and the eagerness to learn has been a major difference. What planet did you take to school with the rings? What planet did we do? Earth. We did not do Earth. What has rings?
Saturn.
Saturn. What's on those rings?
Rocks.
Rocks. Yeah.
We understand that when you put parents in positions where they are equipped with resources and knowledge around child development, then we help build and better support the foundation for success for those children that they care for on a daily basis.
The parents that I've talked to, they're very pleased with the program.
My fellow moms, they love it. We are so happy.
His social skills have really expanded, and that's been a good thing too. Just being able to meet different people and just have different type of conversations. The maturity is crazy to me. It's been a big difference from last year to this year.
I really have seen him just flourish from start to now.
Parents are engaged. They are encouraged to be part of the classroom experience. They are encouraged through parent engagement activities that some of our classrooms may provide.
They sign a contract and they have to have 12 hours of parental involvement per year. That's encouraged. And we bring in parents for workshops at night, and then of course they can come in, volunteer.
We work hand in hand together. So I really enjoy that part. I feel good about talking to the teachers, and the teachers feel good about talking to me.
Tell me, what do you see? What animal is that?
A pig.
Do you know what sound a pig makes?
So much of education is not just what goes on in the schools, it's what goes on at home with the parents who read to children, who start early in helping development and promote a love of learning, reading, language development.
One of the amazing things that we do as a department is we have the First Teacher Home Visiting program that works with using 3 evidence-based home visiting models. What First Teacher Home Visiting does is make sure that the 3-year-olds are also on track as they enter pre-K and on to kindergarten.
I travel the state informing parents of many of the strategies and ideas that we give to help them help their children. That's the first thing you have to do, is train parents or give those parents the knowledge base to help their own children. And I think if we can get the parents on board to helping their children, then the children will be more successful.
We are in about 43 counties with our home visiting. It is still one of those situations where we could be serving more, and we would like to work towards serving more young children.
Perhaps the reason the South has stepped up is that we had greater challenges and we knew we needed to do more.
A student that is not reading at grade level by the time they finish the 3rd grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school. And we must ensure that when a child finishes the 3rd grade, that child is in fact reading at grade level or above when they finish the 3rd grade. We must not, we cannot, we just will not accept anything less.
What I've noticed is that with the community now, Alabama is really trying to bring up our youth of all backgrounds. We're giving more opportunities to children that could not afford it otherwise. Different things where you can have a better opportunity.
When our children come into pre-K, we have almost 60, well, sometimes 90%, depending on the domain, that are not performing at what the widely held expectations are for a 4-year-old. Then by the end of pre-K, we have 90% in literacy that are performing. We have those that are affluent, and we have those in poverty, and now that child in poverty is going into kindergarten at the same level as that affluent child, and that's closing the gap.
I was born and raised in Sylacauga, Alabama. I'm a senior at Auburn University at Montgomery. I went to the Drew Court Pre-K that was located in Sylacauga. I remember being in the reading corner. I remember having this one friend, I wanted to read the book, the same book she had, and it was, you have to figure out how to work together. So we worked on, she would read a page, I would read a page, just going back and forth. And we are actually still friends to this day. There's a lot of instances I could probably think of where I worked with a lot of students, and it helped me out a lot.
If you feel confident and you feel like you know exactly what that person next to you knows, you're motivated to go to school. Those that attend pre-K are less chronically absent because they want to go to school, they feel competent. Pre-K is not just benefiting the cognitive and the literacy and math. There's lots of decrease in grade retention, decrease in special ed referrals.
And then when it comes to work, if first it's hard to do something, you learn perseverance. Because in pre-K, they teach you and they work with you to continue to keep trying to do something. And that just followed me all the way up.
Children who attend the first class pre-K outperform their peers at every level.
We're able to say for sure that our results are lasting. The children outperform their peers in 3rd grade. We know it's because of quality.
Many of those fade-out studies, they don't adequately control for quality. And it's not just quality, they may control for quality of the pre-K program, but then they jump 5 years to 3rd grade and they're not controlling for quality of those experiences of kindergarten through 3rd grade. So you've got to make sure that you're doing that. Are the measures that are being looked at that are detecting fade-out, are they really reflective of the goals of the program? Are they reflecting the great social emotional gains that we see children make in pre-K that we know are needed at that young age and are being sustained?
When I reconnected with my pre-K class, I want to say it was 2014, I realized that all of us were graduating high school. Some were going to the military, some were going to college, and others had jobs or were going to get jobs. So we all finished off well. My future hopes are to go back to Talladega County, go there, teach, and after that, get my master's in educational technology. I know that technology is a big thing. It's evolving fast. So I want to be able to learn about that and take it back and invest with the kids because I want them to be the next entrepreneurs.
We're actually trying to collect as much data as possible across the whole child. It also provides us with lots of information at the state level that we could use to then make a case for why it's a good investment in terms of early childhood education.
Alabama has really made a commitment, which has come from all levels. They have put into place policies along with backing that up with resources to make it happen. And I think that coming together of will has been really critically important here.
The Alabama School Readiness Alliance was founded in 2006 by 4 statewide nonprofits that were involved in education, wanted to do something to make a difference. The power of those 4 organizations working together year after year to put this at the top of their agendas and work with their constituencies to get the word out about pre-K has been, part of our success.
We really think it's important not just to have the school system involved in the pre-K grant, but also businesses and the community and many of the councils, the children's policy councils that are within those counties. And so we do require a 25% match to the funds that we give you. And those can come from businesses, they can come from the school system. Even cities in our state have passed a pre-K tax where that goes to the match on the grant.
These discussions are happening at a grassroots level. All counties in the state of Alabama, by working together with our chambers, with our cities and our counties, as well as our state government, we're able to create the funding source. The business funding comes through our Business Council of Alabama, which is a leader over 5,000 businesses in Alabama. We then take research to our elected officials that create the dialogue, the discussion to create more funding and a more sustainable funding source for these type of programs. And that's been successful because legislators listen to the business community.
It costs a little over $6,500 per child that will pretty much cover the classroom once we have it up and going. We're able to provide a lower cost per child because the administrative cost of the department is less than 2% of our total budget. Funds that we have at the Department of Early Childhood Education primarily and most importantly go to the grantee. The administration of the classes are at the local level.
There's been a number of success stories that we've had in the first class pre-K in Alabama through an agency that's run very effectively and efficiently in a way that holds the highest standards in the nation. And that's something we're very, very proud of.
Because it's a grant-based model where the State Department of Early Childhood gives grants to programs, monitors the grants, they support the programs with coaches so that the grants can stay in compliance. There's an accountability there that's not there necessarily in other parts of the education system in the same way.
We have a research and evaluation team. We want to be accountable for every dollar that we have, and if it doesn't work, we need to change.
With any system as large as this, having people monitor it and keep those standards is the only thing that will ensure that those standards stay in place.
It's held accountable, and that's what I love about it.
The money can be taken away if a program is not meeting the quality standards. And that is something that I talk to lawmakers about all the time. It's a huge reason why this program is such a success.
We follow them. We've got retention data, we've got attendance data, and eventually we hope to see graduation data that we can compare. And beyond that, that whole pipeline into the workforce, we're looking for what those outcomes are long term.
We're still growing, and we're going to continue to grow, because to be high quality means that we're ever changing, and we're constantly reflecting on our own practices, and we're willing to keep an open mind and make changes.
You put a high level of standards onto it, and then you build the system from there. By doing a phased-in approach over time, we're going to have success as we move forward.
We chose a path of slow expansion and high quality. And all along, the early child care advocates and leaders told us, you can reduce that quality and we can expand it faster because the funding will go further. But to maintain the college-educated teachers and the quality standards, we can't have the volume as quickly. it's going to be slower.
We can grow quantity, but if we're not putting quality out there, we're not making a difference in the children.
And when you change the child's future, they're going to be able to change the future of the state in the long run, because they're going to be able to be productive, engaged citizens for the state in the future.
Part of the pre-K story in Alabama is that leadership matters. Secretary Ross knew that accountability and quality, that excellence had to be the primary focus of first-class pre-K. And that is one of the reasons why this program is so supported across the board by legislators, by governors, through gubernatorial transitions where it's very, very difficult for one governor's priority to become the priority of the next governor.
I think that the continuity of leadership is vital with the sustainability of the pre-K in the South. Here in Alabama, we've been really lucky to have 3 straight governors who have embraced and enhanced and looked to the funding to continue to grow our pre-K project.
And I think the business community gets it as well, and we're going to continue to be advocates and champions with our state legislators.
We definitely want to share. We want to make sure that Alabama's legacy is one that helps the rest of the United States move further forward in their own early childhood practices.
What we are doing in Alabama has not gone unnoticed, and we want others to join our efforts.
I think the idea of growing a program at a scale so you can maintain the standards of quality is essential for me, at least as governor. Alabama is a model for what other states can emulate and look to as you're building a quality program. They've done it right in every step of the way.
We are always reading and always trying to look at other programs in other states and the research to see what seems to be working in other states and pick up on that.
We are not going to say that we have it all figured out, because I'm the first one to say this is a learning process, and every single day we learn something new. But we love when we have somebody who wants to hear about our program.
Being able to find partners in other states who understand the issue, who understand the political platform and nature of the work, and to help states think about how to navigate those processes has been instrumental as well.
Over the years, certainly, we've talked to our next-door neighbors in Alabama.
I first got connected with Alabama, it was at a National Governors Association meeting. Secretary Ross was nice enough to come up to Montana and meet with some of my policymakers about what they've done in Alabama and why they've done it, and to educate them about standards of quality, what a difference it can make. I think it was her visit, and also other governors weighing in, like Governor Bryant in Mississippi and Governor Sandoval in Nevada, and others that got the pilot program passed that got me going.
We have what I would call a friendly competition with governors from other states, but we also watch and compare notes, and there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
It's worth every cent we invest to do the early childhood piece. That's what I believe the state of Alabama has tapped into, is that realization that if we invest early, it's worth it.
It's Monday today. It's Monday. It is Monday. It's in my birthday. I have a best friend, and her name is Irene. Then after playground, we're going inside, and then we're reading a book. Then we're going to lunch, and after lunch, we're going to sleep. And then after sleep, we're gonna play. After play, we're going to snack. Then after snack, we're going home.
Wow. What an incredible film. I think first, as we get started for this next part, to really thank Willa and her team at Firestarter for such a beautiful, beautiful film. That, we now remember, we only just watched part of it together. We will have the full length. We really hope that you enjoyed it. I did totally enjoy the engagement in chat. It was so great to see so many questions, so many resourceful people trying to find answers. So if you want to watch the full length film, it will be available online for free through the remainder of this week. And we'd also love to announce that the Saul's Dance Charitable Foundation has generously donated DVDs and downloadable digital links of the film for Massachusetts. This resource can be placed in schools or public libraries for the lifetime use. It can also be used for you to host a screening of Starting at Zero in your local community. So we are encouraging early educators, early childhood coordinators in districts, any K-12 school in the state to claim your free DVD and digital file for your local community. And we will include that information in the chat as well as follow-up materials. And speaking of follow-up, as we were watching all the questions and thoughts coming in through chat, I was in touch with Team SFC, and we want to think about how we can plan a follow-up event where we would invite folks from Alabama to come for a conversation so we can hear directly from them about how the program is going. Some of the questions were answered in chat. Some are answered in the fuller version of the film. And then Alabama has many resources available to think about the program. And as we thought about this Alabama story, we also wanted an opportunity to share a little bit of the Massachusetts story. So in filming and creating the Massachusetts companion video, Massachusetts stakeholders were interviewed between March and May 2022. These leaders will provide their perspectives and insights on rebuilding, recovering, and reinventing the early education and care system in the Commonwealth. They highlight the current landscape in Massachusetts, the impact of the pandemic, the potential for transformative investments in high quality early education and care, and what lies ahead. And I also want to give special thanks to Marissa, who helps coordinate all of these interviews, and the team at Firestarter, who developed the questions. And I haven't seen it, and I cannot wait to see the Massachusetts companion video in its world premiere today on June 7th, 2022. So we'll have a chance to see that now.
The COVID-19 pandemic has made it even more apparent both to policymakers and I think to the public at large, how critical it is that we focus on our early education and care sector, and that we need both major reforms as well as a new investment in early education and care.
We're actually at a point where we need to think beyond regaining ground and think about the reinvention of all of this. Now, we needed to think about the reinvention before the pandemic, but that all of this has been exposed and that the conversation is more public facing and common parlance for folks who aren't even close to the operations of early childhood development. We need to have more conversations about the thing that we need to invent that is just and sustainable. If all that we do is try to rebuild what we had, we know what challenges await us.
We believe that the crisis had to be seen and felt, and we have now seen much more momentum thinking about policies to solve the persistent challenges that we have faced over the last few decades. We cannot forget that. We also cannot go back to the way things were. When we think about Massachusetts, we often think of a state that's leading in education indicators. And while this is true, we have been making slow and steady progress. We right now don't have a statewide pre-K program. We have been working toward many of those goals for years, and I would say in the last 2 years, all that we have learned from the pandemic, we can apply these lessons to reimagining what it might look like in the future.
Not everybody at first thinks that investing in childcare is an obvious investment to make. So we bring them the numbers. We bring them the numbers of women who have lost their jobs disproportionately in this pandemic because they can no longer find childcare they need. And that includes essential workers like our nurses. I recently heard from one of the CEOs of a leading healthcare system in Massachusetts that a lot of his nursing shortage is due to a lack of childcare. These are issues that wherever you stand on the political ideology, you can understand. And I've also relied on the business community to come and help make the case with me. Let's show that if we want to have these jobs filled, we have to invest in childcare as part of that.
For us as an employer, it's important that we work to help provide a better structure of support for our employees, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also because it's a smart thing to do. As a community partner, we leaned into this because we began to recognize how important this issue was to driving greater economic inclusion and mobility here in the Commonwealth. In many ways, we're the greatest beneficiary of a stronger early child care system because it develops a stronger workforce, not only the workforce of today, but the workforce of the future.
Most legislators would want to know is, how does this help my district? How does this help my constituents? And I think there are several arguments here that show how this is an issue that positively impacts, I would argue, every district, every constituent, because we all have a vested interest in having a well-educated population. Massachusetts, the economy here is dependent on a well-educated workforce.
Certainly not unlike so many states across the country at this very moment in time, rebuilding and even reimagining early education and care is no longer simply a societal priority or even a value, but it is rather an economic strategy. Stabilizing, rebuilding, reimagining childcare is going to be the way out of the pandemic, but also an overdue opportunity to give it the role that it essentially plays every day as a public good in the state and across the country.
When the state is considering either implementing or changing a policy, whether that is initiated by the legislature or by the executive branch, there's nothing more important in my mind to getting input from the stakeholders. I think it's important in the early education sector to bring community leaders into the conversation because there are ways in which communities can support the early education sector. The expansion that we are hoping to see of high quality early education for everyone has to be a joint venture among a variety of entities. And in that, I would say state, local, and federal all have to be in partnership for this to work.
I have to be like a general practitioner where I need to know a little bit about everything as a doctor, then surround myself with good, knowledgeable people, or people that will tell me the pros and cons of the issue. I want the experts to tell me, here's the issue we have, how can we deal with this issue so we can have positive outcomes. And if that's it, then we find the money a way to do it.
If we're waiting for there to be definitive research on the brain science, on what the right start in life means, that ship sailed. We get it. We should get it. I think that there is a new generation of questions that have to do with how we fulfill our equity desires, with how we get to a place where early childhood is a public good prior to it being fully publicly funded.
In a very disheartening time of partisan divide in Congress, I do believe that childcare and universal pre-K are issues that we can find partners across the aisle. I think that people are hearing the same thing I'm hearing. Whether you live in rural, suburban, or urban America, in a red state or a blue state, childcare is an issue for families at home. And as people want to get back to work, want to be able to provide for their families in a way that keeps them safe and secure, childcare is a barrier to that success for far too many families.
Early childhood education is crucial to building and fostering an equitable society. We think about it in terms of child developmental growth, where we can support children's socio-emotional and academic learning.
It is in fact well understood that these days that children living in poverty who might benefit the most from high quality early education have the least access to the programs.
We've got a whole lot of research about the gap closing effects of high quality care in education, unlike K-12, which I think at different stages of development is still wondering what is most potent in closing those skill gaps. So now our challenge is really universality. And so how do we actually build the system structure to even-handedly replicate quality and deliver it on a consistent basis?
The key is to, again, do this in a very collaborative way where we have community-based conversations and planning that figure out, well, what are the needs in that particular community? What types of families and children are not being well served? Okay, what's the best way to expand services and capacity to meet the needs of those children? I think an excellent example for how this is working quite well, actually, is in the city of Boston, where Boston's program for building to a universal program for 4-year-olds has been a partnership between Boston Public Schools as well as a whole variety of community-based providers in the city. I think that's the kind of collaboration that we can model after and expand statewide.
I think there's a role for all branches of government when it comes to supporting, early childcare within our communities. Certainly local leaders play a role because we're on the ground. We know the providers, we know the families, and so there's a role for us to play in both identifying the need, understanding the assessment, and working hard on those transitions from early care into, public schools. And I don't think any city can take this on alone, and I don't think the state or federal government can take it all alone. It's going to take that partnership effect of providers, of dollars, of support systems and training, and the technical assistance, particularly in communities that aren't very large. They're going to need that help and that scaffolding. I think one of the questions that has arisen as we've worked through our mixed model program and growing our high quality pre-K experience, both in our schools and in our community, is what's the right structure? It can't be distinct from our schools and it can't be distinct from our community, but a separate entity to really help us, make sure we've got a sustainable ecosystem for supporting early childcare at all levels, not just pre-K.
You can't come in and set all of these expectations without ensuring that there are families involved in making a decision around how this will be implemented with children and families. Shared governance includes making sure that our community partners are helping to inform the direction. So we can't say we're going to set all these standards without talking to providers around what do they need to actually meet those standards.
Early childhood and building a just system that facilitates the right start for every child and their family is an imperative. We have no choice but to do it. If we're concerned about future workforce, if we're concerned about the integrity of the democracy, if we're concerned about the strength of our communities, it begins at birth. We've got the tools. A lot of it now is that we simply need the will.
We know how much that investment costs, and the real question is, how can we afford not to do it?
We show how much we value the future of this country by how much we invest in children, and we really need to invest heavily in our children to ensure they're prepared for success. And that's going to take a lot of time, it's going to take a lot of money, and it's going to take a lot of energy, but it's absolutely worth it for an equitable, for a brighter future for all of Massachusetts' youngest children.
The major sources of funding for the early education and care system today, obviously, we depend heavily on families, both through the tuition they pay as well as parent fees that subsidized families pay. But we also depend heavily on federal funding and on state resources as well. In order to make the kinds of systemic reforms that we need, we certainly can't ask families, to pay more. The tuitions are already unaffordable for all but the wealthiest families, so that's certainly not a solution. We have to look to either the federal government to increase resources for early education care, state government, and or our employers. Those are really the three places.
We as a business community have to be very mindful that in addition to lending our voices, we have to lend our own resources. And that's a key focus of the coalition, is the development and sharing of best practices, things that each of us have done to demonstrate that investment in support of our own employees that we can all learn from and hopefully systematize across employers everywhere.
Educators are essential for children and families in the broader economy, and we can support them in many ways. They are also a group that is remarkably dedicated and resilient. And we saw this right through the pandemic. In our statewide work, in our statewide study, we heard time and time again about the ways in which they pivoted and moved mountains and mounted emergency childcare for essential workers.
I want to say to all the early educators out there that we see you and we appreciate you. We know that you are the most essential of essential workers to our families on good days. And these have not been good days. And we understand that there will not be success for our children and families and economy without your success. So please consider us partners in this work. We want you to succeed because we know that means kids will succeed. And we are so grateful for the work that you have done, that you do every day, the care for these children and the care for our communities. You make our economy work, and we are going to work for you.
I am mostly proud of the people who continuously has given themselves to the field of early education. It's one of the most important work that I feel like any of us could ever do. When I reimagine early childhood education, I'm envisioning teachers being empowered and feeling like I am a teacher and I teach future brains. I teach future professions and feel very proud and valued.
The work is already done. You just need to connect with the people who have done that work and share in the responsibility of getting the task completed.
What would it look like if your community was the most family-friendly place in Massachusetts? We are going to need everyone to play a role in making that reality come true. Thanks again to Firestarter Interactive for that incredible piecing together of the voices of some voices from Massachusetts. I think one of the things as we transition to our panel discussion, I just want to really highlight, since the pandemic, we know, thanking our elected leaders and appointed leaders for the decisions they had to make and their commitment and dedication to understand, to listen, learn from educators and providers, ask questions, visit programs, hold focus groups, and work in partnership with advocates, providers, business leaders, and colleagues. And with the combination, and we've seen it in the chat with the legislature, local elected officials, and the governor's administration, we know decisions that were made over the past 2 years, saved childcare. So we want to acknowledge that, and we are so excited now to turn to our panelists and really hear from them about their local level. You heard about in the video, Boston, Salem, and Springfield have been working on this. We are all working together to ensure that Massachusetts creates these systems and invests the resources needed well to do it at the local level. We also have seen comments in chat about starting at birth. Massachusetts has made a commitment to starting at birth. Other states really zeroed in on pre-K. And I think in Massachusetts, when the department was created, it was created for children starting at birth. So the spirit of that is there, and appreciate all the comments in chat about what does that mean when we look back and how do we demonstrate this commitment. And when we know with early education and care, there's not a one size fits all approach. We are committed, and you heard it in the video, to a mixed provider model in Massachusetts. And we know that the successful implementation needs parent support, parent choice, and streamlined funding. And also appreciating the comments in chat about the family perspectives and that representation matters. We know that these community partnerships have brought together public and private entities, and the ongoing strategic collaboration are designed to achieve and sustain a common goal. We also know this work is not easy, and by coming together to identify strengths and opportunities for improvement, community partners build trust,
social capital, shared decision-making authority, resources, and cultivate equitable and more resilient communities. Based on mutual respect and shared values, community partnerships can serve as the foundation for innovation and long-term sustainable change by bringing together this diverse set of perspectives, investment, capital, commitment, expertise, and lived experiences. Now I'm so excited to turn it over to our panelists from Lawrence, Somerville, and Northampton to hear how they're building comprehensive early childhood systems and community partnerships at local level. We will have some time at the end for Q&A, so please use the Q&A function so we can track the questions. So I will welcome Kathleen Baylor from the Somerville Public Schools, Laura Fragamendi from Northampton Public Schools, and Maria Moeller from the Community Group in Lawrence. I'm going to start with Kathleen. Can you give us a quick summary of how Somerville is responding to the community goals and needs around expanding access to quality early education and care? And then can you also talk about how family and community voice are incorporated into the process of establishing these systems?
Absolutely. Marissa, would you be able to share your slides?
Kathleen, why don't you tell us a little bit about you and your role as we get started?
Sure. I'm the Director of Early Education and Care. I'm new to Somerville. I'm here to represent all of our good work. I've been a former principal, and now I'm the director of this amazing community of early education and care. All right. That was incredibly inspiring film, both of the films. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Marissa. So thank you for this opportunity to share how we in Somerville have expanded preschool access, incorporated family voice, and are building a local aligned quality. Being fairly new to Somerville, I've walked into a vibrant, diverse, relationship-centered community with strong collaborative systems, and I'm honored to represent this work. Here's our early childhood department team. They consist of highly talented coaches, a speech and language pathologist, and an administrative assistant. They connect, support, and bring best practices to our communities and classrooms across the city. Next slide, please. Somerville has a deep commitment to equity. We strive to ensure equitable access for all children as early as possible by offering affordable, high-quality early education options. We want to improve outreach and awareness of the importance of early education and care and build a consortium of engaged, highly quality partners and scale it in the community. Our ultimate goal is to support universal kindergarten readiness. Next slide, please. The Somerville Family Learning Collaborative, our CFCE grantee, conducted multiple multilingual citywide community needs assessments, focus groups, and interviews. The SFLC has strong relationships with families in Somerville. They have extensive outreach in the community, refer children to our preschool programs, and have developed in coordination with Summer Promise, a birth to 5 continuum supporting children and families from cradle to career. We are supported by a 3-year involvement with By All Means at the Harvard Graduate School of Education Redesign Lab, which resulted in the formation of the Children's Cabinet. The Children's Cabinet holds monthly meetings with representation from Health and Human Services, the Mayor's Office, the school department, and other city and community agencies, leading to an interagency collaboration between the district and city to provide a range of programs that has and will ultimately support our children and families. Next slide, please. And I'm pleased to share some of our community successes. Next slide. Our vision in Somerville is for every family to be supported by an equitable system of connection and care that enables our families to support their children's healthy development during the critical years of childhood. We've developed this cross-sector approach under the initiative, One Somerville, Every Child. The slide shows the departments involved in our cross-sector collaboration. We partner together on a regular basis through the first 5 steering committee. Next slide. To eliminate financial barriers to childcare, Summer Promise, housed under the Health and Human Services Department of the city, received $7 million in ARPA funds over 3 years to launch the Childcare Access and Affordability Fund. Beginning this summer, we're providing 25 to 35 fully paid seats in our community partners for toddlers and preschoolers. Over the next 3 years, we'll be able to scale the program to include infant and out-of-school time slots and contracts for family childcare providers, with the goal of providing support to families beginning in infancy and through the elementary years when childcare is essential. We are growing both ends of that continuum. Next slide, please. Somerville Hub Connect is a multilingual tool that directs families to resources such as childcare, out-of-school time programming, mental health supports, and to any assistance they may qualify for. It's our single point of entry for programs and supports in the city. Next slide. The Somerville Partnership for Young Children supports our community-based providers. We provide support as needed with local childcare programs through professional development, curriculum alignment, director mentoring, and a monthly PLC focused on instructional leadership, as well as hands-on coaching for teachers and wraparound supports for students. We screen all students and support quality through data analysis. We are focused on providing collegial support and mindful growth, taking in the capacity of each center. Next slide. Our See Every Childhood curriculum is centered on the whole child. It was designed with a strong focus on anti-bias education, which is integrated throughout the year. It was created in collaboration with early childhood teachers from across the city. The curriculum is play-based, thematic, and interdisciplinary. We focus on the essential practices in early childhood. And please note, if you visit our website, it's a work in progress. There's a huge amount of material, and we're continuing to improve it as we work and receive feedback from our teachers. Next slide. The curriculum contains an overview guide and reminds us about the value and importance of our intentions in our work. It balances program autonomy with alignment to common practices and curriculum elements across the city. We believe in maintaining the flavor of each program in each classroom. This is crucial and fundamental aspect of our approach here in Somerville as we aim to build a mixed delivery system that offers parents choices that fit their beliefs and values. We recognize that there are key practices and approaches to learning that need to be in place for all students to grow and thrive. As a result, we've created a year-long trajectory, pacing guides, and vitamins to support specific skills such as cutting and mark making. And that concludes the highlights of efforts underway in Somerville. And I've included my contact information on the last slide so that if anyone has any further questions or wants to learn more, you can contact me directly. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kathleen. And I know we asked you to, fit a lot of information into a short period of time, and we look forward to, keeping in touch and continuing to watch the work in Somerville.
Thank you so much.
Just a note, we have included some communities to talk very specifically about different parts of their experience. So now we're going to hear from Laura. And we know, Laura, that Northampton is committed to full inclusion of children with disabilities in all programs across the community. How is Northampton establishing equitable access to special education services? And what has this meant for children, families, and community-based providers?
Beautiful. Thank you, Amy. And thank you, Strategies for Children. This has been fantastic. So I'm Laura Fragamini, and I'm here representing the Northampton Public Schools and our preschool partnership. Today, I'm going to talk specifically about our itinerant special education services for 3 to 5-year-old children with disabilities. And this has been funded by a Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative grant. Focusing and concentrating on the intersection in DESE and EEC domains. So that next slide. We know that DESE requires public schools to serve children with disabilities ages 3 to 5, and we're happy to do so. We also know that EEC with early education and childcare with ages 3 to 5. So we're working in that space between an itinerant special education services. It allows us to center the needs of the child. We all know that young children thrive in stable environments with reduced transitions and strong attachments to their adults. Before itinerant services, families without the means to contract for a private paid person to come to their program had to have their 3- and 4-year-old children bused midday, and what would have been their lunch and nap time shuttled between the care program the family needed and the half-day public school program. Now 50% of our preschoolers with disabilities receive their services in their community-based programs. With those full inclusion services, there have been quality impacts on programs too. Supporting diversity and learning styles supports all learners in a classroom setting. We found we're better at meeting the federal child find mandate as itinerant special education service providers are more accessible to community-based teachers. They are in classrooms observing more children in our city. And we find parents are increasingly comfortable with being connected to providers their teachers and directors know personally. Itinerant services are supporting families and it's supporting educators in their work with children. I'll take that next one. So 3 years in, it looks like this. The darker ellipses, those were our original partners with Northampton Schools as the lead agency in a CPPI grant. What's been critical, and we have spread from there. So mutual respect and understanding, this is critical. There are different career pathways, different challenges and benefits to working in a public school or in an EEC licensed program. There are bumps in the road in bringing a new service delivery option to reality. We found that regular open communication made it more possible to navigate issues when they arose, and striving to understand the unique perspective of each program was incredibly supportive to a new partnership. The needs of each program in our partnership are unique too. So noticing and responding to those differences matters. One program has significantly higher number of students with disabilities, so that's where we put grant funds to hire an aide to reduce teacher-student ratios. Another program needs support with translation services or to be connected to the district social worker. Sharing those resources have been really supportive. And yes, there are practical bits. DESE and EEC have different background record checks for reasons. And we've worked out a way to run our itinerant staff through both. We found being mindful to post non-standard hours was important for union public school itinerant staff, as consults between special related service providers and those community-based teachers sometimes need to happen late in the day when a community-based teacher can leave the classroom. Also, in hiring a coordinator, that would be me, you may want, as Northampton did, to open it to folks with EEC credentials and/or DESE credentials. So on that, thank you. So what are the district and community-based perspectives? Community-based organizations tell us they appreciate that parents of children with disabilities can choose their program and that it makes it more possible for them to serve all children. They report their teachers have gained confidence and skill in meeting children's needs, in speaking with parents about developmental screening and evaluation, and in working with those itinerant service providers. District folks are super clear that all early education students are our students, and that providing support to children where they are and when they need it matters. They feel that the formal cohesive partnership has increased communication and capacity in all of our programs, and acknowledge the itinerant services have increased the district's success in meeting the goal of full inclusion in the least restrictive environment. So the next slide, what could be your on-ramp? So Barbara Black, early childhood specialist extraordinaire and Northampton's former early childhood coordinator, worked toward the goal of itinerant services in a few different ways that may work for you too. She invited public and EEC programs to send staff to an exploratory meeting in advance of applying for a CPPI grant. She found a circumstance that allowed for sending services to one child, and by piloting it in this way, you can figure out the goals and barriers to navigate it in your community. You can also bring folks on as cheerleaders in taking those small steps. She hosted workshops and then invited public school and community-based educators to learn together. She called communities that were doing the work she wanted to learn about and she checked in with families. Would it help them? We found that public and community-based program partnership does work, and we are so grateful to EEC for the support in making it possible. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Laura. It's great to hear about the work happening in Northampton. And now I'm going to turn things over to Maria Moeller. Maria, can you tell us how Lawrence City officials and community-based providers are collaborating to ensure affordable, quality early education and care is available to families across the community?
Sure. So this is a story that's a little too organic to display in slides. So apologies, I don't have a PowerPoint, so I'm just going to stick to my story.
Excellent.
So the one thing I should mention is that to start is that Lawrence has a high concentration of nonprofits, and each an expert of what they do. We don't do each other's work. We trust each other's expertise, and we have high level of trust. We collaborate and we meet regularly, actually every other week, to provide to talk about how to provide wraparound services for our families. It is something that took time, but has developed over time in Lawrence, and it just takes showing up a lot before that trust develops. But we also have a mayor's office that is highly approachable, that listens, and that allows us to be the experts, and that's a big deal. So when there is a childcare or early education issue, the mayor will have a conversation with us as the experts, and we will work together to address it with them, which is what happened in developing the mayor's childcare scholarship. It was initially a response to the needs of students that were learning remotely at home during the pandemic, while parents had to go to work. Lawrence residents are mostly essential workers, and children were at risk or actually being left home alone, or in unlicensed, unregulated spaces. So there was a high need right there, right at that moment, and the need for childcare for school age, but also for younger children as the program evolved later to service these children as well, was very obvious. And the mayor allowed us to develop and present a program that would address this problem. And he gave us some parameters, of course, around economic development and strategy, and that's their expertise. And of course, he was willing to fund it. So we partnered with all other early education providers in our city. This was not a one-man job at all. We called everybody together. There was plenty of need and plenty of children for all of us, and we wanted the field to get stronger and stronger, and we needed that stability at that point. And they all agreed to work together to develop and accept these vouchers that we were developing. What was fun, it was really, really fun to develop them, because basically it was like a playground for us, right? We were at the city level. We knew the residents in our community best. We knew their needs. We were able to identify the barriers they were facing and why were they not being able to access early childhood education. And they needed, there was a true need on their part. We worked with our CCR&R, the Child Care Resource and Referral for Region 3 in Lawrence, the Child Care Circuit, and we obtained the information from them. They see parents every day that walk through their doors with a true need of childcare, to access childcare, and they have they have a job, and they can't afford childcare. So in the current system, of course, like I said, somehow it's not working for them. So we developed what we think is an accountable system, but it's also respectful and equitable for our families. I can go into very fine detail, but I will not, I promise. A couple of the more important ones is that families are eligible up to 110% of the SMI, and they can stay in the program up to 125% of SMI. There is a true 1-year subsidy, so there's no reassessments in between, to ensure consistency for children, for families, and for the financial consistency also for the providers. And that's a win-win. Similar reimbursement system for providers. So basically, the Child Care Circle reimburses the providers in a similar way to the state, but without a complicated attendance system. And it's done on the ground by the CCR&R. So they answer their phones. They are more available because it's a smaller setting. And parent fees are close to the national affordable childcare definition of 7%. Some of it is when you hit the 125% of SMI, then you hit 10% of parent fee. And then we minimize the eligibility paperwork as much as possible. So the system is very simple. It requires minimum labor, I think maybe 2 staff members, and it's a very low administrative cost. It's right now $3.6 million for 2 years, and obviously our mayor has committed to continuing this afterwards, and we are in conversation with him constantly about this. We meet regularly with the mayor's office to provide accountability reports. He knows how efficient this program is. And he gets to share also some feedback that his constituents are giving him. So there's a little bit of politics there, but it's great because it allows us to modify or evolve this program to meet the needs of the community. And super important right now too that we're maximizing the use of this program as a bridge between that gap that exists on the wait list when families actually need childcare, but then they have to get on the wait list and wait for 6-7 months or more until they become eligible for a childcare subsidy or come up on the wait list. So this funding allows them to accept that job right away. And then when they become eligible on the state wait list, we are able to transition them. And in the meantime, we also work with our family to help them with the paperwork that they need to supply for childcare eligibility. Last thing I'll say, currently the program is full and there is a wait list, which is a telling tale of the continued need for funding. There is no way we can fund the entire need of the city. There is a demand here for childcare. We have high hopes that modifications that are hopefully happening in the state subsidy system will allow to or eliminate that wait list or reduce that wait list, but also that more families can access early childhood education for their kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria, for your leadership in Lawrence. I think you really laid out this critical relationship building that, with the mayor's office, with you, with the people who are the experts doing the work. We know we're right at 1:30. I want to give the panelists a chance to connect, to respond to one of the questions in the chat. And then I will have a quick call to action and thinking about next steps. So if you think about in your experience, and I would reframe the question a little bit, not only how we educate parents, but how will we listen to parents and think about which questions to ask so their involvement in the conversation of how to reimagine early education is meaningful and impactful. So if folks have any thoughts on that, I'd open the floor to you.
An answer because we have been toddler, when is your child a preschooler? Why did you choose one or the other? What about family childcare? Because in Northampton, as Kathleen and Maria are talking about, we're working on all those pieces of access. So when someone calls, it's like, what is the right program for this family? And then at the same time, working through the quality supports for family childcare, for preschools, for daycares, for childcare, for early. We're really striving to say and to make sure that parents can be assured that all early education and childcare formats, programs are aligned in Northampton. So I think talking with parents about that was really interesting.
And I think, Maria, if you could talk a little bit about kind of what happened in Lawrence really came directly from a parent experience. So can you talk a little bit about that?
So you're talking about the parent need that was at that point?
Right, and like how that need was addressed by policy, but what did they hear from parents that kind of caused this action?
So it really was, it was actually happening that parents were being forced to leave their children in unregulated spaces and they didn't have much control what that was, what was available out there. They couldn't really afford anything else. They were actually calling the mayor's office, and then the conversation started right away. So it really happened because of a direct need that was recognized. And it was actually on the paper at one point too, because one of these programs was discovered, and we all realized how horrific it would be, to be forced to that situation. I mean, I'm sure that it wasn't willing participation in that program for some of the parents.
Right.
So the mayor obviously decided right away that this is a priority. So, it took a pandemic sometimes. It takes a pandemic sometimes for us to realize how important we are for.
I think that's one of the lessons we have learned, certainly as Strategies for Children, where I think we have tended, when we talk with elected officials, we sometimes try to reframe and talk about how great everything is. But I think, especially for families, the pandemic was an opportunity to say, I can't do this. They said it to their employers. They said it to elected officials. They said it to each other. And I think we did see responsive policies being made. And I think that's really important to remember. Kathleen, I know you have one more thing to add to this, or we can kind of, I'll give you a chance and then we'll turn to our call to action.
I think I just touched upon it in my presentation with the Somerville Family Learning Collaborative. They are really the boots on the ground. They have extremely close relationships with families. And so we meet weekly as a First Five steering committee and listen to what parents have to say through the Somerville Family Learning Collaborative.
Thanks so much. And I think at this point, we've just been so thrilled and overwhelmed with the response, with the chat, with the panelists, with the films. And we really hope that you enjoyed being together this afternoon. Marissa has put up a slide which really kind of caps up a summary of where we are right now. We are in the middle of the Massachusetts policy story for this year. So Strategies for Children has a daily 9:30 call that runs from 9:30 to 10 in the morning. Everybody is welcome. You are representing yourself, not your organization. We will send a follow-up email that will include all of these links. So you will get the link to the recording, link to any resources. Right now, we have $344 million at stake. We have seen an incredible response for advocacy around this, but every single voice matters. So we would encourage you to first know who represents you at the State House and then take action. First, by maybe, if this is the first time you're doing it, click and send the email, but then follow up and start to develop a relationship. And then we know we have legislation pending in the State House. So please stay up to date on that. Their Common Start Coalition worked on a bill with a huge collaborative experience. And now the legislature has released a bill pending legislation. We have until July 31st. So besides all the end of the academic year celebrations and acknowledgements, we need your voices as advocates. So please, and we also know that we have a roadmap, an early childhood community partnership roadmap and self-assessment tool. So many of the words we heard of the last hour and a half: accountability, stability, supports for educators, pay parity, data, equity, continuous improvement. All of these pieces we have to take responsibility to make sure they're included in whatever work we're doing. So I would encourage you to take a look at that as well. And I think the other piece, just really thinking about this partnership. So public schools, city, town halls, city halls, the community at large, everybody has a role to play, and it can't just sit in one place and hope that everything is going to get done. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank our partners. I want to thank the team that put this work together today, and thank each of you for joining. The full recording will be available at this event. There's still an opportunity to register for tonight's event, which will also be simultaneously translated. And we would encourage folks to share that information with other people. You can check us out at strategiesforchildren.org. We want to be here to support you in the work as you're doing to become great advocates for young children and families. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you soon. We'll leave the chat open for a bit as people are leaving. And if you have individual questions or things you want to know more about, please, you can add it to the chat or connect with us after. Thank you.